Hey guys and ghouls, welcome back to Jay versus Horror. It's Movie Club Week 3, and this week we are talking about Without Warning from 1980. Stephen Parker picked this one for us to talk about, and this one, look guys, I wanted to talk about something else first, okay? This is what I like about Without Warning. It has three really great actors in it: Neville Brand, Jack Palance, and Martin Landau. And what's interesting is like they all three had these really great careers, but they didn't get super famous until they were older, right? Now, Jack Palance, of course, he was nominated, I think, for a film he did early on called Sudden Fear with Joan Crawford, but he wasn't nominated again for like 40 years, and then he ends up winning for a comedy film, City Slickers, where he played Curly, right? And Martin Landau had been nominated twice, I think. Crimes and Misdemeanors he was in from Woody Allen, and also another film called Tucker, A Man in His Dream, about a guy who made cars. But yeah, so he had been nominated a couple times, and then he won in '94 for the film Ed Wood, where he played Bela Lugosi. It all comes back around. See, and Jack Palance even played Dracula in a couple films, so that's kind of interesting. Now, Neville Brand has always been interesting to me. This guy is most known for his role in a Toby Hooper film called Eaten Alive, and it's a weird film about a hotel owner who is a psychopath and has an alligator out back that he feeds people to. So it's really interesting. You can see a lot of influences from different movies in that one to make one movie. But Neville Brand does excellent in that film, and he's been in a lot of stuff. You go back to the old black and white Western days, you'll see him a lot. But one of the coolest things about Neville Brand that nobody ever talks about is this guy was one of the, for years, I think, the most decorated war soldier of all time. I mean, this guy was a legitimate badass who killed Nazis. All right. So, yeah, those three guys make the film interesting to me, and they all three give solid performances in this movie. Now, to talk about the movie a little bit, I don't love it as much as everybody else does. I'm not going to put it up there in the iconic cloud, that atmosphere. It has to come down a little bit. Now, there's reasons why it's interesting, and there's reasons why it's good. But let's be honest now, the guy who made this movie, Graydon Clark, this was the gold rush of horror, right? The 1980s. Everybody's pitching everything, and if it's got to do, if you can put teenagers getting killed in it, you're going to get a green light, right? So he pitches Without Warning and gets a green light, but the studio that's going to help him make the movie says, "Look, we want you to rewrite the script a little bit. It's a little choppy. It's weird." So he says, "Sure, no problem." And he goes out and he hires his buddy, and his buddy's name is Ben Tramer. That's a horror reference that a lot of you guys are going to not get, but yeah, there is a iconic horror character named Ben Trimmer. But anyway, it's not this guy. This guy says, "Sure, I want to write it," and he writes about half of the script for Without Warning, and he brings it back to Graydon Clark, and he throws it on his desk, and he goes, "You know what? I was writing this movie, and I had an epiphany that I don't want to write horror films. I want to write comedy films," and he just kind of left him hanging. And so Graydon finished the script himself for the second time and just turned it back in like he had his buddy had written the whole thing. So then when the movie comes out, he tells his buddy, he's like, "Do you want to be credited for writing this movie?" And he's like, "Because you wrote the first half of it." And he's like, "I just filled in the rest." And the guy says, "No, no, no. I'm going to have a serious career as a comedy writer. I don't want this on my resume." And this guy, Ben Tramer, the most famous thing that he ever ended up being involved in besides this was, yeah, he wrote some episodes of Saved by the Bell. So yeah, he really nailed it. He was good for him. I love it when people snub horror and then make great stuff like Saved by the Bell after that. But anyway, yeah. So let's look at some of the comment. Well, I'll talk about the movie. What I thought about the movie. Right, the movie's weird. Okay, and one of the other great things about this movie that does make it interesting. I won't say iconic, but it is credited, literally credited as being an inspiration for the film Predator, which comes out in '87. Uh, but they had a bigger budget and they had Arnold, and yeah, so and I always thought Predator just kind of, to me, Predator is a slasher movie. I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but to me, Predator is a slasher movie. But instead of a guy with a mask, you've got a 7 foot tall alien with armor, and instead of buxom blondes running down the lakeside, you have Arnold and his muscled up buddies getting picked off one by one. So for me, Predator was always a slasher film. It doesn't surprise me that it got its inspiration from this film, which is a weird movie. It's not really a slasher, and it has an alien in it. This alien is just out killing people, but it has these little fleshy disc that it throws. It's such a terrible effect too. Even for that era, I gotta say it's a terrible effect. But yeah, there's some good performances from Jack Palance, Martin Landau, and Neville Brand in this. And then, like, it's just really weird when you're watching the movie. I remembered it from when I was a kid, but I'm glad we went back and rewatched it instead of just talking about it because there was so much weird stuff in this movie. Uh, you never know where it's headed. You don't know what direction it's going in because we have these four kids, and maybe they're the main characters. I don't know. There's several other people involved in this story besides just the kids. It almost feels like they're thrown in there because of the era where you have to have teenagers getting killed in your movie, right? But the kids, two of them get away from the initial attack and they're looking for somebody to help them. And you're wondering throughout the movie, is anybody going to help these kids? Is somebody going to help them finally? And there's even one scene that's very frustrating where they run into this bar and they're trying to get help. They're like, our friends have been massacred. And everybody's like, oh, calm down, relax, take a breath. I mean, that's not your average response to somebody running into your establishment screaming about, their friends have just been murdered. I don't care if they're lying or hysterical or what. I'm still going to give them a phone and let them call the cops. And it seems weird here. It just gets drawn out further and further because the lady behind the bar says, sure, I'll call the cops. And then she's like, calm down, though. I want you to calm down before I call the cops. It's just weird. There's lots of stuff in there that's weird. And Martin Landau plays like a he's a vet, an ex-soldier, and he's having his own little storyline here that's kind of adding to what's going on. And overall, guys, look, the film for me, it's like 5 out of 10. But if you add in all these other little things, the fact that it's an inspiration for the film Predator, the fact that, the guy who played Predator, Kevin Tyler Hall, I believe is his name, is also the alien here. He played Predator, of course, after Jean-Claude Van Damme exited the project, or used the project, I guess you would say. But there's a whole nother story there. But anyway, yeah. So it's most interesting for the things that really aren't about the movie. And let's see what you guys had to say. Because a lot of people love this movie. And I don't hate it. But I just don't have that, like, great love for it like I do a lot of the other films from that era. So Stephen Parker, who picked this, said, if you're a fan of Mystery Science Theater, you're familiar with a lot of the names here, but this is a great flick, so much that for at least a year after my friends and I watched this, we would run to each other's houses after dark to avoid it. Watch it and see, or to avoid the alien creature that's after. There is an interesting scene in this movie, though. There is an interesting scene in this movie where this alien goes after a bunch of Cub Scouts, and I remember thinking, that is a little terrifying for that age or in that era because even Jason and Freddy didn't go after little Cub Scouts, right? They had an age limit where there was like Freddy did before he died, apparently, but Jason didn't kill little kids. So I always thought that kind of stuck with me a little bit too. And Brian Payton said, you can watch this on YouTube for free. That's a good catch there, Brian. Yes, guys, you can watch this on YouTube for free. There's a free copy of it. There's also a pay copy. That's up to you which one you want to deal with. So Philip Hooper said this was apparently the inspiration for Predator. The creature was even played by Kevin Peter Hall. Yes. And LaRon Price says he'd been meaning to see this, and he's definitely going to watch it on one of his days off. He comments later on it, too. And Renee watched it. Andrew Blackwell said he absolutely loves this movie, and it predates Predator by a few years. And he mentions Kevin Peter Hall being in it. He said, if you love your humans being hunted by aliens, this is definitely one to watch. And if I might suggest, watch it with the lights off. This hunting season has begun, but the hunter isn't human. Only the prey are. Yes, very good. Todd Oseverk says, with cinematography from Dean Cundy. Okay. And then LaRon came back after he watched the movie and said, definitely had fun watching this. It's been forever since I've seen it. It's a hidden gem for sure. When they start eating on you, don't come to me for help. I remember that line in the movie, too, from the other day. It's a hilarious line because everybody's like, shorting this guy like he's crazy. And then he's like, when they come eating on you, don't ask me for help. Chris Olsen, who picked last week's movie, said he wasn't a big fan of this one. It's a guy in a rubber suit throwing killer frisbees at teenagers. Very accurate. That's what it is. But some people like that kind of stuff. He said it was fun for seeing a young David Caruso pre-NYPD Blue. Yes, I forgot to mention that. David Caruso pops up in a lot of stuff around this era. Remember First Blood? And Ingo Dirk Schneider said, such a fun film. Everything you expect from an 80s horror film. Slightly dubious creature design and special effects. Lots of kills and an innocent, helpless teenage couple. And some household names starting their stuff. Have to love the goo in this one. Great choice for a movie night with friends and a couple beers. Yeah, that's a pretty good review of the film. So yeah, I'm a big fan of these guys, the actors in the movie, Martin Landau, Jack Palance, and Neville Brand, because they're guys who put in tons of work. Go Google them, look on Wikipedia, wherever you want to look. Just look up their filmographies and even their television appearances, because television was very important back in their era too. And it's just tons of stuff. I mean, just amazing. And also their life stories. If you get a chance, read their life stories. Like I said, Neville Brand, one of the most decorated soldiers in history. Jack Palance was the son of Ukrainian immigrants who had nothing and came to this country. When they came to this country, he was also there was like this whole civil rights thing that blew up over Jack Palance one time, because he showed up to a theater and these people just assumed his ethnicity. They were wrong about it and ended up causing a giant riot at this theater. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things about all these guys. Check them out. And if you want to watch Without Warning, go ahead. It's worth watching just for these guys. And guys, who are we gonna pick? Who are we gonna pick? We gotta pick somebody. We gotta pick. Almost got off without picking somebody. Okay, so just from what we looked at, I'm gonna pick LaRon Price. LaRon, it's your turn to pick the movie. Week 4 movie club. Try to pick something that's on a format that's wide, like maybe Netflix, Tubi, something where people can watch it. We want the most people to have availability. And if you've already seen it, there's nothing wrong with dropping a few lines if you don't feel like watching it again. But we're going to let LaRon pick the movie for week 4. And guys, we will talk to you, as always, the next time we got something we're talking about. Bye.